The Influencer's Edge is brought to you by the Rapid Sales Accelerator. If you're ready to skyrocket your sales by 30% or more in just 90 days, then you need to claim your free training right now. You'll learn 4 words that will compel your prospects to trust you like they were children within the first 3 to 5 minutes of any conversation across any platform and any medium. You'll learn how to give your prospects objection amnesia, to crush objections like, I need to talk to my spouse, or I need more time to think it over, or it's too expensive. If you'd like to claim your free training now, go to www.paulrossbook.com. Do it before your competition does it now. Thank you for tuning in to the Influencer's Edge, where you get the latest breakthroughs, cutting-edge insights, tools, and techniques so you can leapfrog over the pack in sales, influence, and persuasion. Remember to visit our website at www.theinfluencersedge.com to enjoy even more great episodes like this one. We look forward to seeing you again on the Influencer's Edge Show.
Welcome back to the Influencer's Edge. As you know, you can say it with me if you're a longtime audience member. We've been doing this 3 years. This is a show that colors outside the lines, disconnects the dots, and thinks outside the box. And today, my guest is Sam Malone, joining me from old Blighty, jolly old England. Pip, cheerio, stiff upper lip, although Sam is a Canuck. He's my neighbor to the north, a Canadian, a Maple Leaf, a Molson drinker, a back bacon eater. Right?
Oh yeah, for sure there, bud. I just made it really Canadian, my accent.
And Tim Hortons, right? You live at Tim Hortons.
Yes, it's a staple. It's a staple.
I have Canadian friends, and I love my Canadians. Canadians are people where you knock them over and they apologize. Sorry for being in your way. That's the stereotype. I know that's not true. Sam, I invited you on today because of one thing in your bio, one of the specialties that you talk about, but we'll get into it. Let me read a short version of your short bio, just for the audience.
Sounds good.
This is not really going to tell you who Sam is. The way he and I interact will tell you a lot more. But that said, Sam is the lead spoken voice lecturer in musical theater, wow, for the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama. And you teach the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. Wow. That's something amazing to see artists bloom and bring acting to life. I think there's distinction between entertainment and art. Entertainment just keeps us distracted, but art teaches us about the human condition. And for you to facilitate that is a wonderful thing. Your students now lead West End productions, including Hadestown, Mean Girls, Les Miserables. Did I say that right? Not quite.
Yes, you did.
Fan of the opera. I resemble him when I don't put on makeup, and more. Sam coaches executives and teams at companies such as Wagamama. I don't know that one.
Wagamama.
What is Wagamama?
So Wagamama is in New York. I think they just opened in Texas as well, but it's based in the UK. It's kind of like this Japanese fusion kind of food. I'm just trying to think of what an American equivalent would be.
I figured it was Japanese. Yeah. Okay. You blend spoken voice, executive presence, and here's why I invited you on the show. First, I don't see how it connects to my audience, but then I saw this. Nervous system informed practice. All right. That's clickbait for me. I mean, not in a bad way. That's like catnip. I'm a cat lover. My big fat black cat's wandering around and wanted attention earlier. What in the hell does that mean? System and nervous system informed. What does that mean? Nervous system informed.
So I think traditionally spoken voice work, which is reserved for actors, like you said, so art form, as to maybe entertainment, maybe Instagram and TikTok and all that jazz. And it was very much a craft, like how do you build your voice? But where I'm taking the field is I think that spoken voice work helps regulate your nervous system. And so I'm starting to discuss and meet more nervous system scientists, so like experts in the field, on how breathing, your connective tissue, and these practices that we use in spoken voice influence or help regulate your nervous system. So when you are standing up in front of people, it's no longer just like fake it till you make it. It's like, no, let's calm their nervous system. And then they'll start speaking more like a leader because then they can show up fully.
Isn't that something though? I know traditional acting classes always teach projection and voice training and to
Mm.
breathe differently than they normally would. So how is this a evolution beyond that?
Yeah, so I would say that my practice in particular, I'm starting to look at how your fascia, your connective tissue in your body, so like the sausage casing around your muscles,
I'm aware.
so how um, it connects in with your voice. So, for example, you might have the deep front line from your feet to your tongue. We know your somatic, your body carries old memories in terms of maybe in your nervous system and how you react to things.
Very much
So,
so.
yeah, for example, in my one of my classes recently, two of the students got very emotional from the breath work. It's not the same as Wim Hof, which is rooted in Tibetan Buddhism,
Right.
but these are breath practices and body practices, so not just breathing from spoken voice tradition. So how does people's bodies relax and then their nervous systems also relaxed? And that's how it's informed that way versus just, yes, we're going to breathe and we're going to build your resonance. We do that as well, but I think you need these first two steps.
I never thought of the idea that fascia and connective tissue could be something that has any input, or I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm just
Mm,
playing the devil's advocate here. I don't
yeah.
understand the process or mechanism by which fascia or connective tissue could affect the voice. I understand the muscles, which are obvious
Mm.
on the diaphragm, could absolutely do it. So can you dive a little bit more into how that would work and how you would, so first of all, what's the explanation? What's the process of how those things can connect? Does the fascia in turn control the muscles of the diaphragm, or what's the science here?
Yeah. So my understanding of fascia is that you have more neurons than even your brain. Now, they're not the same kind of neurons. Neurons are different in your brain, or like synapses. They serve different functions. So you have different nerves. Yes. And fascia covers your body, and traditionally we used to think our muscles and our bones held us up. But a lot of like the sports sciences and medical sciences are saying actually your connective tissue acts as like a web, like a suspension grid, and everything connects in. You might know about this. I don't know if your listeners do. And so in that case, if you aren't in optimal alignment, so I was working with someone the other day, a lady, and whenever she speaks, she kind of like subtly leans back her head. And when she does that, her voice doesn't come out anymore.
Yeah,
And then people speak over to her because she loses volume, she loses audibility and resonance. And that's
yeah,
the way her muscularity and her fascia, because fascia, in my understanding of it, is it can get brittle or it builds differently. So, like different athletes have different types of bodies. So, when we start to release that and you find this optimal alignment, it takes pressure off the voice and the voice comes out.
my voice, I've been told I have a very resonant voice, a radio announcer
Hmm.
voice.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm a hypnotist. That's where I
Oh,
developed
yeah.
my voice. And what I found, and this show's about you, not about me, I'm sort of reflecting back and acknowledging your experience,
Hmm.
what you're teaching. My voice used to be like up here, and it
Yeah.
only dropped when I learned meditative breathing and started doing some yogic practice and some other pranayama. Then it naturally, I didn't do any exercises, so it affected the muscles around me. And I also have gotten a lot of body work, including myofascial release.
Hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So bring us into how this bridges over into business.
Yeah, I wanted to mention one thing about that voice thing you mentioned too, because I think it'd be interesting for your listeners about like where you said your voice was here and then it dropped.
Yes.
Um, so North American accents tend to be more twangy and in the mouth, so like up in here, as to British tends to be a bit more hot thought, and it tends to be a bit
Oh, you do
more
that
down and
well.
back.
That's
But
BBC announcer British.
yeah, but so yeah, yeah. Well, I need to. I have to teach accents as part of my job in terms of the drama field. But what is interesting is yes, how do we engage our chest and keep our American and North American twang? And that's where you get those nice, rich grounding tones, which help people relax. So it makes sense that with hypnotism, you get that kind of sense of sound working that way.
Yeah. And it
Yeah.
also involves knowing when to pause in a way
Mm-hmm.
that draws the attention.
Yes, and that is also part of rhetoric. Like, how do you convince people? So, yeah, it's lovely.
Cool bacon. So how do you then go into businesses and you're working with the executives, the leaders, or the teams, or what's the gig that people do with you?
Yeah, so I'm quite lucky because when I'm working with executives, directors, or founders pitching for investment, I work with them to, number one, help write their speeches. So, yes, they can get AI to help them, but a lot of the time it sounds too general. It doesn't really have their voice in it. So, I help them create the message they're making. You're speaking to 500 of your staff members and you're like, we have a big change coming. How do you make them believe in you and relate to you and inspire your audience if that's your goal? And then I work with them physically and vocally so they move with presence, which I think is a lot different on a medium such as laptops and camera. That's a lot different of a medium. But when you're in front of like 2,000 of your employees, that might be at a very different level than you, say, VP finance. How do we take something that some people think is traditionally quite dry, like statistics, finance, et cetera, and make them really buy into what you're saying? Yeah.
And you have you always had your voice is very resonant. Does someone teach you? That's my first question. Did someone teach you, or was it always very resonant? And what brought you to the work? I always want to know the psychology. Like, were you uh, the kind of young man who, when you went through puberty, your voice didn't drop, or what's the deal? What brought you to such an unusual line of work? Because it's not an everyday thing that people hear. Normally, you hear, well, I teach executives how to read people and the disc model and all these various different things that I think are bullshit. But this is landing me with, well, it is. I don't pull any punches on this show. That's why people, I think, tune in. Maybe we have no one listening.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, how did you come to
Well,
this work? Was it a personal thing that moved you to do it and then you brought it into the business field?
so it's twofold. So my undergrad is in international business. At the time, so I'm from a more rural area of Canada, and I'm much older than people think. I'm mixed race East Asian, so I don't really age. But
Yeah, I
at the
understand.
time, yeah, we just people think my mom's like
I'm the
my like
opposite. I'm
sister.
Jewish. I'm actually 25. It's all the guilt from mom. It's the mother.
You're so funny. I appreciate it because a
I'll
lot of
try.
podcasts aren't. Anyways, so there was times where people were like basically discriminating against me and doing slurs. And as is similar in the US, we can do a double major. And I was very close to doing a double major in acting. And that's where I found my spoken voice tutor because acting is broken down into movement. So, how does your movement influence an audience? How do you embody character? Acting. So, like becoming the character and influencing your words and intentions. And then speaking, finding different range and making so that your words does have the resonance to really shake people emotionally. And
And
so
if I could,
yeah,
one, the primary example I'm thinking is Heath
mm,
Ledger's the Joker. Yeah, he had that
yes,
voice, and he knew when to pause in that voice. And when they said, you're crazy," I'm not. I'm not. That kind of he really brought out he became that character. It was terrifying, and you bought it completely because of the way he used his voice.
exactly. And if you think of, is it, it's from Split, the actor
Yes.
from Split,
Yes.
James McAvoy. Yeah, he can split on an instant. And one of the things I'm teaching my students right now, and I teach at the drama schools and I teach corporate as well. I'm teaching them how to switch in 5 seconds into like a completely different version of themselves. And so my voice teacher, upon my request, was teaching me how to shift my voice and movement if I was feeling unsafe. And that's when I realized voice work is not just theater, it's not just public speaking. It's really able to help people be heard, whether that's their spouse not listening, their in-laws not accepting, or maybe at work people don't hear them as a leader or they speak over them. That's where the voice work really has this empowering impact on people.
I'm
Yeah.
smiling, as you can see, because it's an open secret on this show that my other identity is Ross Jeffries, the pickup and seduction guru. And one of the things I've always taught my students is you need to resonate with your voice and you need to speak slower and know when to soften and have a range because voice up, here comes the boss. No, kitty, daddy is working. No, you can't be in my chair. She thinks everything is hers. Look, that's her. Over there, baby. She's a daddy's girl. As I'm speaking with you, I'm thinking also the difference between acting on stage and acting on TV. I'll give you an example. A Canadian,
Yes.
a Canadian, William Shatner. He was often criticized for on Star Trek. He was actually he started as a stage actor. And one of the things he did, I think, that made him unsubdued, I don't know what's the word, or over the top, chewing the scenery, so to speak, he would bring his stage acting presence in front of the camera, where you have to be a lot more subtle. Is that a correct analysis, or am I off on that?
No, you're bang on. So what I'd call that is scaling to the form. So Shakespeare and theater on stage needs to be way bigger. It needs to be like, oh, for a muse of fire, because you have to fill the space and it's really big words. As to film needs to be very like still. It's all the motion that's happening, especially if it's close up in frame. And you can even think of it in terms of, are you framing in the office? Are you framing giving a public speech in front of investors, et cetera, et cetera? And you usually have to scale depending on the audience size.
Theatricality. Wouldn't you agree, though, that being theatrical has its place in business communication? Sometimes people need dramatic examples to shake them out of their apathy. That's a quote from Batman Begins. You think there's a place for being theatrical in business?
I do, because there's twofold. Number one, we're seeing with the younger students, and I mean like 18 to 25-year-olds, they are afraid, at least in the UK, of being cringy.
Ah,
And but you only become good at acting by learning how to scale and be big and be a bit cringy and then make it real. And in business and even in politics, you're seeing a lot of people. There's some people who talk like this to get their audience to listen. Everyone needs to listen to me with my intonation and using that pause. And they're using theatrical vocal intonations at a scaled level to really pull audience attention. So I agree with you completely. And no one likes listening to a boring report if you sound really
brought up
monotone.
something even more that is really landing with me. You can do it to the point where it's a little bit cringy and then make it more powerful. I like that. That's true. And again, as a seduction teacher, that's why I teach my students is you have to be powerful. You have to believe what you're doing. Be a tiny, just a little bit over the top enough where it gets people's attention in a powerful way. You have to walk the line between being overpowering on the one hand and being cringy and boring and what is the word? Average. You have to walk that line. It's very easy to fall
Yeah.
over. It takes a presence. It takes, I think, and you push back on me, I think it takes a relaxed presence that also has a strong intent. People can have a strong intent but not have a relaxed presence. Or they can have a relaxed presence that makes people relax, but they have no intent, so they can't be leaders. I think it's one of the things that you're helping people is to get to that through a somatically informed pathway, which I think is really fucking cool. I'm allowed to say fucking on my show.
I love it. I love it. So I would agree with you because a lot of leaders, this is where I call it coherence. If your nervous system's stressed, if your body's tight and your voice is saying something completely different, or one of those three are missing, that's where you don't have the intention and you don't have the relaxed. And when it all comes together, that's the sweet spot. So when I work with different entrepreneurs, they'll give me a line that they're using, like, we're not changing healthcare, we're saving lives. I don't know, something like that. And I'll go, we're not changing healthcare, but what we are doing is we're saving lives. And they're like, you make it sound so much better, but it's because I have the skill physically and vocally and the craft to put it all together. And so that's what you're talking about.
I've taught thousands of men to get laid using this stuff. I can say this. You can unsubscribe if you want to, ladies and the gentlemen who are cucks. I can say I don't care. I offend people on the show. It makes it more interesting. People give me feedback that they like the fact that I'm unexpected, and I'm sure you've never had an interview like this.
No, it's great because people want real. There's so much like AI and stuff now. They don't know what's real. And so it's really good that you're being honest. And I think that you're going to be have a lot of work if that's what you teach, because I see so many young people doing an acting scene where they're flirting and I'm like, you're not flirting, what are you doing? And I have to teach them what flirting is because they lack the social skills. So I think you're right on to something.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of acting. And what would you say to someone who says, well, you always have to be sincere? This isn't really me. If I do this, I'm being manipulative. This just isn't me. Do you ever get that?
So I do, and I have uh
It's
uh
inauthentic, which I think there are times where you should not be authentic.
yeah, I think that you need to know your audience. So if you're thinking of, so two different things I want to mention. So we have ethos, pathos, and logos. Yes. So ethics, logic, and passion. I did not like a completely validated study, but a study in my master's where we took different speakers and put them with someone completely different. So we took uh, Greta Thunberg's speech and gave it to an older male, and people could hear it. And across each of those flips of people, so you took the speaker and flipped it with someone completely different, almost every time the ethos, the ethics, which people misinterpret, if my idea of you doesn't match what you're speaking, it will jar them the wrong way. So with the Greta Thunberg speak, my house is on fire, they all were like, where's your scientific evidence? This is ridiculous. You sound
Exactly.
like a child. So I think it does have to match. I have a friend named Patricia Suarez. And so if you go like this right now, and listeners can do it as well. So see what thumb's on top and see how it feels. Yeah, so my right thumb's on top. See how it feels. Good. Unwind and then put the other thumb on top and see how that feels. It might feel really icky to a lot of you. So it depends on the individual. Some people who cross their thumbs a lot, but some people feel really icky doing that. Good. Let it go. So the reason it feels icky is you're using another neural pathway that your body's not used to. This is why when you're faking it as an actor, a lot of the time it doesn't feel real. It feels inauthentic because you're using different neural pathways. So her example is like that. because most people will cross a certain arm or cross a certain leg. And when they do the opposite, they go, oh, that feels really gross in my body. You're just using a different neural pathway, and it's about learning to adapt to that.
This is really cool. This is super cool. I am thinking, I want to circle back 2.5 minutes to this idea,
Sorry.
of being authentic. When I coach and train people, they say, well, it's this just isn't me. It wouldn't be me. It's not. And I think that's often saying, I want to stay where I am. It's more about, well, I'm afraid to expand and stretch myself. But you're dealing with people who are devoted to their craft. So I would assume when you teach acting, they're far more willing than when you teach executives. Is that not true, or is that?
I would say largely that's true. So,
So how do you bridge
yeah,
the? How do you make
yeah, okay.
executives just as willing?
So I think that takes time. I think that takes trust to break them out of their comfort zone. Because what I would say is if they're feeling like that's not them, feeling authentic, to me, I would say, well, your accent is a habit. The way you move your arms is a habit. The inflection you use is a habit. None of those are quote unquote natural. We all have the same equipment. People in China, people in Korea, people in Russia, people in Brazil, people in US, they all have the same equipment in their larynx, etc. But it's your habitual way of moving that you are calling authentic and identity. But actually, it's just a pattern. So consonants and vowels create an accent. That's the difference between like New York and Texas is mostly consonants and vowels and some inflection changes. It's just a habit. So if they're not feeling authentic, it's because they're trying out a new habit and their body doesn't really know what to do with it. So I would agree
Correct.
with you. They can shift. How you do that, it depends on the individual because they might be blocked in different ways.
Almost sounds like you need to do just a little bit of therapeutic intervention. If they've got all this tightness in their musculature, but also in their connective tissue, where all that trauma is stored, I'm wondering because I have this stereotype of acting and actors that they're kind of disturbed people. They're not people who are really centered or emotionally well regulated. Am I wrong, or is that stereotype? I know a professional actor. She was on Lost. I don't know if you know that TV series Lost.
Yeah, I know, lost.
And well, we used to be friends. We talked about acting all the time. And she
Yeah.
said, no, Paul, actors are just big babies. I don't know if that's true or not. But so how do you take someone who's fairly emotionally unregulated and does that make them does that facilitate them more efficiently slipping into different roles and characters? I know we were going to talk about business, but I'm fascinated by acting.
Well, and I think it does cross over into business. So I guess to answer a few of those questions. So firstly, 70% of actors, according to one of my colleagues' statistics, 70% of actors are neurodiverse. So dyslexic, autistic, ADHD, autism, Asperger's, you name it. And they're all different mixtures of that. So they might see the world quite differently, and that's why they're so creative as well. This is why they're also usually quite funny because they'll see connections that we don't see,
I'm
or they'll
thinking
say
of Robin
something.
Williams, who is a
Yes.
brilliant actor. You wouldn't think someone who's so uncontrolled and manic in his comedy act could be so subtle and so. I'm thinking of his role in Good Will Hunting, where he
Yeah.
was not, he was very controlled and very grounded with some boiling anger underneath.
Yeah.
I get it. I totally get it.
So in terms of like regulation, then, so voice work and acting practices, especially voice work, I can't speak to the other acting practices, is therapeutic, but it's not therapy. So I would say that if you need like mental health therapy, that's different than voice work. I would say that in my classes, because I am interested in nervous system and connective tissue, that I like to teach people how to start to calm their nervous system through breath work, releasing of different like connective tissue or muscle tension, etc. But again, it's not necessarily therapy. A lot of therapists will send their clients to me when they work on the mental stuff, but they can't get them to physically and vocally open. They like my somatic practice. I would say that the connective tissue doesn't necessarily hold the trauma. Because there's debates in the scientific world about where it's held in the body. They know it's in the body,
The
but
body
it's like
or by
exactly.
yeah, you
Cold. Yeah. Yeah. So we know that the nervous system might be reacting, and then the connective tissue and muscles react as well. So it's more complicated than that, but I understand that. So what I'd say in business though is when you go into the meeting, are you breathing so tight in your chest that you're releasing stress hormones because your nervous system's in fight, flight, freeze, flop, fawn, one of them, and you're so stressed that now you're undermining yourself physically and vocally before you even talked to your boss about the sales or etc.
And people will pick up on the fawn and immediately go, anyone who fawns, I don't respect. They'll smell,
Exactly.
they'll pick up. We are actually gone past our 30 minutes. I want you back on the show. My producer will reach out to you with another
Yeah,
invitation
sure.
because this, I know we didn't even talk about the questions that you put, but I
Yeah,
told you
that's fine.
this is how the podcast works. All right. How do my audience stay in the conversation with you? They're going to want to stay in the conversation and keep communicating with you. What do they do? Email, go to a website, free book. What do you
Yeah,
got?
so I'll give them two. So my website is www.elevatevoice.co.uk. So it's a bit different. It's
Yeah.
uk.co.uk. I'm also on LinkedIn, Sam Malone Voice, because the thing is, Sam Malone was from Cheers, right?
I know.
So
I was thinking about that. It's going to be cheers.
so yeah, those are probably the two primary ways. I've done a bunch of other podcasts. I don't have my own YouTube channel really. I think it's more interesting to hear what other podcasters have to say and banter and talk about things like we just did. So yeah, that'd be the two main ways.
One more thing. I've realized about Canadians, they
Yeah.
tend to end their sentences with an uptick. And
Yeah.
it's very interesting. Am I correct? Is that all over Canada or just certain provinces?
So according to accent and voice teachers, that's known as Canadian rising. So if you think of Ryan Reynolds, like I'm really mad at you, we all tend to do a Canadian rising at the end of our sentences.
Is he Canadian?
Um, yes, he is.
Oh,
And
love him as Denver.
so and I forgot one more thing as well. If for more information, I have a book coming out around December. It's coming up pretty quick called "Why They Can't Hear You: A Practical Guide
Ooh.
to Being Heard." So
Oh,
yeah,
love that. That's going to be a hit, man. All right,
I
ladies and
hope so.
gentlemen, once again, a fascinating guest on the Unconventional Influencers Edge show. Normally, I end this with a funny little vignette about aliens in Canada, but I won't do it because I don't want to insult our guest. I'll tell him see you on the next episode of the Influencer's Edge.
The Influencer's Edge is brought to you by the Rapid Sales Accelerator. If you're ready to skyrocket your sales by 30% or more in just 90 days, then you need to claim your free training right now. You'll learn 4 words that will compel your prospects to trust you like they were children within the first 3 to 5 minutes of any conversation across any platform and any medium. You'll learn how to give your prospects objection amnesia, to crush objections like, I need to talk to my spouse, or I need more time to think it over, or it's too expensive. If you'd like to claim your free training now, go to www.paulrossbook.com. Do it before your competition does it, now. Welcome to the Influencer's Edge. This is the place where you come to get the latest breakthroughs, cutting-edge insights, tools, and techniques to leapfrog over the pack in sales, persuasion, and influence. Be sure you visit our website at www.theinfluencersedge.com. And while you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now sit back, tune in, and enjoy today's episode.